Hi, my name is Rich Powell. In many ways, I'm just a regular guy. However, I have experienced something remarkable in my life that I would like to share with you. And it just might make a huge difference for you, like it has for me. Though this conversation may be helpful for you if you are struggling in a current marriage relationship, it's specifically targeted for someone who is a Christian believer and is single after years of marriage. If you have desires to someday, somehow find yourself in a loving and committed relationship, keep listening. Let me ask you, do you have concerns that because of some fears or anxieties from a past relationship, that perhaps your next relationship won't be successful either? Are you noticing the people you go out with, that they seem to have emotional baggage from their own past relationships? What if you could be free of your own emotional baggage, making you more attractive to someone clear of their own issues? What if instead of fears, you both just felt love? I've asked several women what a future marriage would be like for them if she could point out problems or concerns that she has about her husband without him getting defensive or verbally aggressive or any number of unpleasant responses. What if their husband's response was just appreciation with at least some effort to improve? Universally, their responses have been like, heavenly, amazing, I would love it. Well, newsflash, ladies, us guys, we kind of feel the same way. One, when you point out our flaws, most of us don't want to feel criticized. And two, we would also like to be able to point out, minor issues with the women in our lives without them taking it poorly. Listen, after I've gone through a specific process numerous times that I will explain later, I'm in a place where people can point out my flaws and I don't feel criticized, ridiculed, shamed, or whatever. I might just agree with you and thank you for pointing it out. So if eliminating your own emotional baggage and becoming unoffendable is of interest to you, so you can attract a beautifully healthy person to love, then keep listening. Let me tell you what I experienced. Years ago, I came across a guided visualization and meditation designed to release fears and negative emotions. I did not think I had any fears, but I certainly knew I had negative emotions at times. By negative, I mean an emotion that is not Christ-like. For example, anger, hate, resentment, anxiety, shame, guilt, and so on. Then I came across this quote that resonated with me. There are only two emotions, love and fear. All positive emotions come from love. All negative emotions come from fear. From love flows happiness, contentment, peace, and joy. From fear comes anger, hate, anxiety, and guilt. It's true that there are only two primary emotions, love and fear, but it's more accurate to say that there is only love or fear. For we cannot feel these two emotions together at exactly the same time. They're opposites. If we're in fear, we are not in a place of love. When we're in a place of love, we cannot be in a place of fear. And yes, that's from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. As I considered the negative emotions that I sometimes experienced in my marriage, I realized that my anxiety was caused by one or more fears that I had to one degree or another, such as the fear of being ridiculed, minimized, fear of failure, being controlled, discounted, making a mistake, being wrong, not being good enough, disappointing others, fear of offending, showing emotion, among others. Each of these fears resulted in one or more negative emotions like anxiety, frustration, anger, resentment, resistance, embarrassment, sadness, or any number of other emotions. I began to use a process that I will describe later to eliminate the fears and negative emotions, and I was getting amazing results. My story describes a path I took. Many of my friends and family have followed this same process to release their own fears and negative emotions. I have many words of appreciation from them for the impact it has had in their lives. I'll share their words in another video. And I'll tell of an experience I had of releasing some fears and negative emotions. This was at a time when I was still married. My wife and I had gone through multiple marriage counselors over the years. And on the first day of any new marriage counselor, I would tell him about a button or a trigger that I had, that when I felt like she was controlling or manipulating me, guilting or shaming me, or criticizing me, that I would shut down emotionally. I wouldn't say much to her when shut down. I knew it was not healthy, but I didn't know what else to do. So I described this button or trigger to the counselor and let them know that if they could help me resolve it to make it go away, it would be money well spent. Well, none of them were able to do so. Tens of thousands of dollars later, years of that. Now, fast forward several years, after I've been going through this process of eliminating fears and negative emotions, one day I came across a list of about 14 fears that some people are prone to have. I saw this list as like a gold mine for me, because I was in this process of letting go of fears and negative emotions. And it's like, oh, wow, this is a great list. I don't want to have any of these fears. I was determined that if there was any hint of any of these fears, I wanted them gone. So it took me several hours to make it through this list. And the very next day, my wife called me and telling me I needed to talk to my two oldest boys and to discipline them for something that they had done. She wasn't happy with them. Now, most of my arguments with my wife dealt with the disciplining of the kids. Her approach seemed to be more, in the face, confrontational, and get them to submit. My approach was more of a, hey, let's sit down and talk about this, and let the child, describe what their experience was first, and then get them to understand, hey, there's another perspective. The other person, maybe there's some room for an apology or something. Well, while as we were talking on the phone, it was remarkable that this time I did not feel the anxiety or this trigger or button. At one point, she suggested that I discipline my oldest son in some particular way that you might do with, say, a 7-year-old. And he was 23 at the time or thereabouts. I calmly told her, do you really think we should do that? Because he's now in his 20s. And I said it kind of like that. No judgment, just kind of, hey, consider this. She thought about it for a few seconds and says, you're right, don't do that. I was floored. She wouldn't typically do that. At the end of the conversation, I agreed with her that, okay, I needed to talk to the boys and that I would let her know how it went. I got off the phone realizing that she had gone through some of the same patterns that she normally would, but this time my walls did not go up. I wasn't triggered. I didn't push my button. And we just had an adult-like parent conversation about our children. Those walls that I used to supposedly protect my heart have not appeared ever since. The button is gone. I'm no longer triggered. I'm thrilled. Since then, we have had some very serious disagreements on the phone where we wanted two conflicting things, where she used her attempts, and this has only happened twice since then, where she used her attempts at shaming and guilting and name-calling and belittling. I was still not triggered. I just called her on her stuff, told her that what she was saying was not fair and that it was inappropriate for her to say those things, and that if we couldn't come to a compromise or some kind of an agreement, then sorry, but no go. And so when we got off the phone, and I was calm, grounded, happy. I had one primary emotion. I felt gratitude. Now, granted, I was grateful that I was not married to her anymore, that I didn't have to experience that like on a weekly basis or something, but it was still gratitude. I wasn't rattled, I wasn't anxious, frustrated, nothing. I was just grateful and feeling content. We had one other conversation that went down a similar path with the same results. Again, not triggered. We have not had any more of those conversations since, and it's been years. She appears to be much better now, as she seems to be adjusting to the idea that our children are grown up and they can't be treated the same way she had years ago when they were young. I wonder if my being firm yet fair had a positive impact in assisting her to also change. I don't know. I like to think so. Imagine your own life without any fear and without any negative emotions like anxiety, frustration, impatience, and so forth. Imagine having only feelings of love of various forms toward others, like kindness and compassion. Imagine that when dealing with difficult situations or interacting with challenging personalities, that you are at peace, comfortable, and sure of the path forward and through these challenges. Imagine that when you do make a mistake, you quickly and easily take responsibility for the mistake, and a better approach becomes obvious. Changing becomes more easy than you've ever experienced before. Imagine not judging others or yourself. You can easily recognize the flaws in others and yourself, but it does not make them or you a bad person. You just feel love for others and yourself. Imagine that those you are in relationship with are also experiencing this new paradigm. How would you describe that relationship? Heavenly? This path or process that I am describing involves identifying a fear and the resulting negative emotion or emotions. The process involves using your imagination and figuratively placing that fear and negative emotion on an altar and sending it to Christ for Him to transmute it into light. There have been times that in that instant where I imagine that fear or negative emotion being transformed by Christ, I have felt a change in my heart. I felt it leave me in that very same instant. Others report that after this process, they feel lighter. They feel free of that issue. Others report days and weeks later that somehow situations turned out different, void of those fears and negative emotions that would typically show up. I've experienced the same. My offering is for you to take His yoke upon you and learn. His yoke is easy and it makes the burden light. So if something that I have said creates some curiosity or interest, then please go ahead and send me a message that you are interested in more information. Thank you for listening.